Right now, a video is going viral showing someone in a McDonald's holding up a flyer that basically says they are banning black people from the restaurant. I can't verify the tweet, but there are a lot of stories coming out right now that in the wake of the coronavirus, the Chinese government and businesses are evicting black people, are banning them. And I got to tell you, man, we've known this for a long time. China is super racist. Check out this story from 3 years ago. Black man is washed whiter in China's racist detergent advert. It's strange to me that right now you've got conservatives condemning the racism of China and the lies and the authoritarian government, and you have, for some reason, many people on the left trying to defend the Chinese government. Don't ask me, but I'll save that for the next segment coming up at 4 p.m. For those on the podcast, you'll have already seen it. But I want to show you this video first. The China Insider tweeted, "A McDonald's in China is allegedly not permitting black people to dine in their restaurant. This follows weeks of rampant discrimination and racism towards foreigners in the China, particularly towards the African American community. The sign says, notice, we've been informed that from now on, black people are not allowed to enter the restaurant. For the sake of your health, consciously notify the local police for medical isolation. Please understand the inconvenience caused." And it looks like a McDonald's. So I don't know if the McDonald's Corporation is going to do anything about this, but I'll tell you what. They might try and do the defense of, oh, no, the Chinese government is making us do it. Don't care. Literally don't care. McDonald's, this is on you. If your businesses are going to be doing this, then don't be surprised if I won't, go to any of your restaurants. I mean, I'm not going to eat McDonald's. Who am I kidding? I don't eat McDonald's. I think it's gross. So fine, whatever. Then, I got nothing other than I think it's wrong. And perhaps it's true that the Chinese government is making this happen. But if these businesses that are American based and born want to operate in other countries, and we see this, don't be surprised when your brand takes a major hit. And it should. This one's on McDonald's. Now, while I can't completely verify that video, it was tweeted out by many people. It looks to be McDonald's. And look, I got to be honest. It's kind of a hard thing to verify in the first place, because if you wanted verification, you'd ask for a video. So if we have a video of someone in a McDonald's, you can see an employee, it looks like they're holding the flyer and then someone's filming it. I don't know. I'm going to lean towards thinking it's real. I suppose it's possible that somebody, handed the flyer to the employee and then held it up to claim McDonald's was doing it, maybe as a prank. One of the things I noticed right away was that the flyer was in English. And I'm like, nah, I don't believe it, because why is it in English? And many people quickly pointed out, because the expats, the non-Chinese, many of the black people who come to China, they likely speak English, or they're assuming foreigners will speak English. That actually does make sense. We've seen this quite a bit, though. Check out this story from France 24 from just the other day. Quote, "If you're black, you can't go out. Africans in China face racism in COVID-19 crackdown." Isn't that the only one? Check out this story. "After enduring months of lockdown, Africans in China are being targeted and evicted from their apartments once again from just yesterday." Andy No, journalist who tweeted out the video as well, said, "I cannot independently verify this particular instance, but can confirm that very similar messages are being posted in southern China, where most of the African expats are. The U.S., who China accuses of racism, has been speaking out on the issue." So one of the things that China has tried doing to deflect blame or to make the West look bad is claiming that, Trump saying China virus is racist. We see for some reason leftist media pick up the same narrative, and then arguing that, Chinese citizens and Asians are under attack in the United States for, because of the racist perceptions of coronavirus. And sure, there have been these instances, of course. It's not institutional. Why are businesses doing this? Why are people being evicted? You want to explain that one, China? Check out this story from France 24. They say, China says it has largely curbed its COVID-19 outbreak, but a recent cluster of cases linked to the Nigerian community in Guangzhou sparked the alleged discrimination by locals and virus prevention officials. Local authorities in the industrial center of 15 million said at least 8 people diagnosed with the illness had spent time in the city's Wexu district, known as Little Africa. 5 were Nigerian nationals who faced widespread anger after reports surfaced they had broken a mandatory quarantine and been to 8 restaurants and other public places instead of staying home. You know why this is so interesting to me? In the U.S., we've heard the outraged left, the screeching that, you can't call it the China virus or the Chinese virus. Well, Bill Maher recently came out and struck that down, saying, yeah, that's where it came from. But one of the problems we faced is that there are many people who are, I guess, scared of Chinese people because of the coronavirus. And so there have been stories of people who are Chinese or Asian, even like Asian American, not immigrants, wearing masks and getting yelled at. This is literally the same story happening in China. So, you know what? Maybe the problem is that human beings are racist, I guess. I think the United States is substantially less racist than China is. We have civil rights law that guarantees certain protections. And you could not do what we are seeing now. They're straight up saying at this McDonald's, assuming it's true, black people can't come in. But it's not just that. Check this out. They're being evicted from their apartments. This is Quartz Africa, and they report. Across African capitals, Chinese ambassadors are being hauled over by foreign ministries to explain horrid scenes that have gone viral on social media platforms of African migrants being evicted from apartments and refused entry into hotels. The videos have enraged governments and citizens back home. The incidents have sparked a diplomatic race row with the African Union, various African governments, and even the United States, all putting pressure on Beijing over the reported treatment of black migrants who are predominantly from African countries. Ghana, Nigeria, Kenya, and Uganda are among those that have asked for explanations from the Chinese government. Quote, I don't know where I will sleep tonight, a man from Ghana says in a nighttime video. Luggage strewn on the streets. We are Nigerians, Ugandans, and Ghanaians. We are stranded now. In another video, a group of black men can be seen pulling their luggage and being herded through the rainy streets by police officers. They are chasing us away. We are just walking on the road. They are not giving us houses. They are not giving us hotels. They don't want us to stay at one place, the person filming the video says. On Saturday, the front page of Kenya's Nation newspaper read, Kenyans in China rescue us from hell. So how about I give a shout out to all of the social justice activists who want to complain about white supremacy and the problems of the United States and systemic racism and all this other stupid nonsense. One of the things we've been hearing now, like Ocasio-Cortez saying this is a racial issue. You know what, man? It's not a racial issue in the United States, okay? It's a poverty and class issue. And yes, that will predominantly affect black and brown communities because while it's true, most white people are, It's true that there are more poor white people than any other race. Black people are more likely to be poor. These are facts. I'm not trying to impugn any race or culture. And there's a lot of reasons why you can argue that's true. But when looking at the data, I think poverty rate among black households is like 26% compared to white households being around 10%. But there are more white people in poverty. There's a lot of complicated math you got to go through. So what ends up happening is when the coronavirus hits, it hits people who can't afford certain treatments, who can't afford to social distance, and that will predominantly affect, probably like urban black and brown communities. It does. So one of the reasons I think it's not impacting poor white communities, even though there's more of them, is because they tend to be more rural, not always. And so a lot of these rural houses, farms, and white families living in middle America, well, they're not living in dense urban populations, so they're less likely to get this. It's not, it really bugs me out that there are a lot of people trying to turn this into a race thing, demanding reparations and other nonsense, when we could just help poor people and it would solve all of the problems. But let's be real. Whenever there's some big social justice leftist issue, they claim there's a global problem of colonialism or whatever. And then what happens? They excuse China. They ignore the racism of what China is doing. And yes, the Chinese people, not all of them, but there are racist Chinese people. It's a fact. I mean, you had that commercial, and here's what the Chinese company said. They said that any discrimination is in the eye of the viewer. In the advert, you see cleaning detergent is put in a black man's mouth. He's shoved into a washing machine, and a Chinese guy comes out, and they're all laughing and smiling. Yeah, it's racist. It's implying that certain people of certain races are dirty. And they don't care. That's not the government. That's the people, the businesses in this country. You've got all of these issues, environmentalism, and they say, oh, but, white Europeans, they're the worst. Well, what about China, man? They're pumping out tons of pollution. They're doing all this oil exploration all around the world, and they're completely ignored. Even to this day, when we have serious considerations for how the coronavirus is impacting the environment, things are doing a lot better. Where's Greta Thunberg to come out and talk about what China is doing? Instead, we get woke leftists in this country defending China. It's the most insane thing ever. I told this story. You may have heard me tell it in a previous video on a podcast, but I actually had a conversation with an activist when I was at the Dakota Access Pipeline protests. And I was saying that I had to go I had to have a business meeting in a few days. And I was told that scheduling was colonial thinking. And I said, what does that mean? What do you mean colonial thinking? And it was explained to me by this white progressive that because I had set a schedule for a meeting, which every culture understands the concept of, that I was embracing white European colonialism, which I got mad. I was like, what are you talking about? As someone who's part Asian, I said, we had scheduling and technology and everything well before the Europeans did. Like, we understood the concept of waking up to go farming. We knew what it meant when it was like, you got to wake up at this time to do this thing. And I was told by this activist that white Europeans brought that concept to Asia. I kid you not. Are you kidding me? These people literally think Europe is the epicenter of the entire universe. And it's the weirdest thing. It's almost like they have to hold this view and disregard all of the really awful things that happen in Southeast Asia. Look, it's not just China, but it mostly is China, especially right now. China has a lot of really bad things. They have concentration camps. Are we going to see anybody come out and talk about this? There have been a few progressives. There have been a few celebrities who have called it out. But this problem is certainly getting beyond anything you could ignore. But of course, what do we get? We get the establishment for some reason trying to defend the China and the government. And I think it's because the only thing they know is the orange man is bad. And I think this is derivative of the dying media. You know, Joe Rogan recently was talking about media objectivity, and he was saying that he thinks CNN's just trying to survive. I completely agree. They've come to a point where they're just not relevant. If CNN and any of these media outlets had, on the ground journalists and were actually doing real news, I'd say, okay, well, I guess they're trying to survive. They're not doing this. Take a look at what the New York Times did. If you saw the segment, if you listened to the segment I did earlier, they're defending Joe Biden. The only thing they know how to do is play the same game. Orange man bad, period. No matter what. If Trump comes out and says, look at all these countries using this medical treatment, what do? They come out and say, it must be bad. If Trump comes out and says, this started in Wuhan, all of a sudden now, and even Bill Maher's calling it out, they say, we're no longer going to abide by the normal naming procedure for viruses. West Nile, Zika, Ebola, Middle Eastern Respiratory Syndrome. Get it? Wuhan virus. Or whatever you want to call it. But yes, Wuhan virus makes the most sense because those are the rules. That's how we actually used to name things. Something happened. Trump said it. Boom, must be bad. I'm sick and tired of this, man. Right now in China, you have overtly racist actions taking place. Africans, U.S., say blacks are being mistreated in China's Guangzhou. This is from yesterday. How about this one? African nations and the U.S. decry racism against blacks in China. In the United States, we may have racism problems. We certainly do. We have bad history, but we are fighting every day to the best of our abilities. And, maybe it's not perfect to actually be better. And most people in this country now, especially mainstream personalities, every politician abhors racism. Save a few I could call out. But yes, it's not perfect. But you want to compare us to China? I'll tell you what. Social justice activists, when they're talking about the environment, need to call out China and India. They don't do it, even to this day. Race activists, they want to talk about U.S., imperialism or European colonialism, and they ignore what China is doing. Right now, China is colonizing in other countries. They're not doing it in the way that people, expect based on history. They're not loading up on boats, crashing into the shores and sticking a flag in the ground. But because of their massive population density, people from China are leaving the country and setting up roots in other countries and expanding their culture. Now, you can be totally fine with the majority of Chinese culture, and a lot of it's totally fine and cool, actually. And you can be totally fine with them as a people. That's absolutely fine. This is coming from someone who has Southeast Asian heritage. But you have to call out their culture. 100%. And now the weirdest thing, Bill Maher apparently is a conservative. I don't even know how you deny it at this point. Bill Maher's got Trump derangement syndrome, fine. But it's weird to me how they're going to, Bill Maher can, whatever's going on, I don't know. I guess maybe Bill Maher's still a liberal, so am I. But it's a fact that they have wet markets that are spreading diseases. Call it out. It's bad. Have you ever been to Chinatown in New York? They have fresh, raw fish and animals. There's animals hanging in the windows. It's not the same. No, don't get me wrong. But you can see how there's a possibility that these cultures will spread around, and they do exist in other countries, and it spreads diseases. It's why so many diseases have emerged in China. But a lot of people don't know this. The left will tell you the Spanish flu emerged in Kansas. That's one theory. Another theory is that the strain started in China and then mutated afterwards. And that's why China had a mild flu season during the Spanish flu, because they had an immunity to the weaker form, which protected many of them. There are a lot of problems with this country, and we need to call them out. More importantly, they have concentration camps. I can't believe all of these people, these social justice activists, want to sit here and claim that, I love this tweet where they're like, ever wonder what you would have done in World War II Germany? And it's like, sure. And they say, well, you're doing it right now. Why? Because of Trump or because of China? Yeah, why don't you give me a definitive answer and actually tell me what you're focusing on? Because you're not focusing on these causes. You're lying. You just don't like America. Okay, I know it's really silly because it's a very conservative stereotype where the conservatives are like, they just hate America. But come on, man. Don't we at least have some evidence right now? If China's literally operating concentration camps, sinking, they've been sinking Vietnamese fishing vessels. They're extremely racist. They're pumping out smog like nobody's business, and no one seems to bat an eye. So if you're going to ignore a problem that large and then complain about America, I'm just going to go ahead and think you don't like this country. There are absolutely things in this country to criticize, 100%. But come on, man. If African nations and the U.S. are calling this out, it's about time you call it out. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 4 p.m. at youtube.com/timcast, my main channel. For those in the podcast and they're curious, it's all just on this podcast episode. So, but I will see you at 4 p.m. Thanks for hanging out.